Awesome. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are. Thanks for joining us for another analytics tug. And today's event is going to run for 2 hours as usual. So just a few things. What makes this tug different? Basically, it's virtual and it's almost every month. And so the goal is to show up here. We have lots of great speakers. We want to learn everything analytical about Tableau, whether that's desktop, server, doing stuff in web edit, Axe data, et cetera, et cetera. And starting from next month, we're going to be having all our information moved over to a site called Bevy. So please go ahead and join there so you can stay up to date with all the events that are coming in the future. And we also have a forums page. You can search up analytics user group in there and you get everything you need. And there's that QR code, which you can use later on to just scan it and get onto the website. So for your leaders today, we have Annabelle, Prasann, and myself. I'm going to just quickly do a run through of everyone. So for Annabelle, she is a Tableau Center of Enablement lead. Her passions are Tableau. She really loves her dog and she loves chocolate. She's located in Zurich, Switzerland, and she also co-leads Data Plus Women Zurich. And you can join the events over here with this QR code as well and see what other great things they got going on. Next, we have Prasann, who is also a Tableau visionary who recently joins the cohort. So congrats to Prasann. He's also a social ambassador, a Tableau featured author, and a member of the Tableau Speaker Bureau. He also founded Tableau Buddy program and leads the Tableau Buddy Talks. So it's a really great program that he's got going on there for beginners and just anyone who's looking to learn about Tableau. Prasann has got a lot of good stuff going on there. As far as his Tableau journey, he's been working with Tableau for around 3 years with American Express GBT as a product engineer on the innovation team. He's got a strong sense of community building and mentoring, and he's mentored over 250 data professionals around the world to date. So that's really great stuff. Fun fact about Prasann, apart from his nerdy side, you can find him partying or trying out different food genres, or geeking out over anime. Go Prasann. As for myself, I'm also a recently new Tableau visionary and Tableau Public Ambassador. Received a few community awards, which I'm grateful for. And for work, I'm a database manager at Postmedia, and I also do like client stuff through Visit Analytics, which is like my business on the side. Tableau journey, this is my basically 3rd year using Tableau. And I believe in just basically, using design, aesthetics to kind of get people to engage with data products and get the insights which we need. So I'm always a fan of just making things look beautiful. Fun fact about me, I guess when I was younger, I got put into art class. And so which with the colors and painting and sketching and everything, I kind of find Tableau to be almost like an art palette. So I like to experiment with different designs. And I actually need to have, Tableau activity consistently just because I love it so much. And when I don't, I sometimes get Tableau Jones and I kind of need to do something really quickly there. So that's a little bit about myself and the other speakers there. So a few ground rules for us today. You can interact using the chat just to kind of, say hello and stay engaged. But we do recommend using the Q&A for your questions specifically, mainly because the chat goes really fast and you don't want to risk your questions getting lost. So please remember, if you want to say hello, just, engage chat. If you want to ask a question, Q&A, please. Of course, remember to have fun. We're learning, but we want to keep things fun and exciting. The session is being recorded and it's going to be made available on YouTube after the fact. So if you need to jump off, or those who aren't here, they can also get a chance to look into this. Finally, don't forget, you can keep in touch on Twitter at AnalyticsTug. You can follow us, show some love there, and also just keep in touch with all the tweets about the events and the awesome speakers and everything else that we got going there. All right, so for today's agenda, we've done the welcome already, and we're gonna have three awesome speakers today. First, we've got Kevin Wee that's gonna be speaking to us about, Tableau and Figma, doing a demo about how to create annotation layers for our dashboards. That's something that's really helpful. Then we're gonna have Chris talking to us about web data connectors in Tableau. That's also another handy thing to get into as far as like connecting to data. And we have a final, combo from Thi and Jason called Think Design, use Gestalt principle and pre-attentive attributes to define your design methodology. So we're going to be learning a few things here about how to actually make our work effective and grab the attention of our users. So lots of cool stuff coming in here today. And now I'm going to pass it off to Prasann, who is going to talk about our speakers.
Okay. Okay, so first coming up is Kevin. We have known each other for a long time, and I really love his work. Kevin is a Chicago-based senior BI analyst and at Discover Financial Services, and also Tableau ambassador, and his work is just awesome. If you haven't, I'll tell you to go to Tableau Public and look at his work. It's just a bomb. And if we talk about his Tableau journey, he came across Tableau in 2019 while searching for an analytical tool for his doctoral research project. He's a PhD, if you didn't know. And his business has been well received, and he has been getting VOTDs. I shouldn't count that. And he also got the award last year in the Visi. That's what the award was, what the WTF. I never knew Tableau could do that. And fun fact about him is he is a typical multilingual Chinese Malaysian, and he can speak many languages: English, Mandarin, Cantonese, Malay, and many more. Yeah, we couldn't keep up with what all he can do actually. So and today he has a very, very interesting topic, that is creating annotation layers for your analytical dashboard. And if you haven't ever done that, I will suggest everyone to just get glued and ask as many questions in the chat box, not in the chat box, in the Q&A section, and be interactive as much as you can. Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing and pass it over to you, Kevin. So over to you.
Sure. Let's get to the right screen. Just to be sure, are you all looking at the Tableau cross Figma page? Cool. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Kevin Wee, and today I'll be talking about how to leverage both Tableau and Figma to create analytics dashboard, and specifically on the emphasis on creating an annotation layer for your dashboard so that it can help future target users better understand what that dashboard is about. So now let's begin. Just before I start, I just want to have two notes to all of you and myself as a data analyst. It's really important to, there's a fine line between a well-designed dashboard that look good and a dashboard that just look good and doesn't have any real content in it. I think recent weeks we have learned from many new technologies that just because something sound right or look right doesn't mean that there's actual content behind it. So a well-designed dashboard, to me, it's easy to be used by the targeted audience or target users to answer analytics questions, not to bedazzle them by the fancy color or something that's glowing. Though I have to say, on my own Tableau public account, definitely in order to try something new, explore something that I wouldn't have done in the office, things get a little bit crazy there, but just take that with a pinch of salt. The second is a dashboard display here today are built primarily to show you what we can do when we combine both tools. It's not built to actually being used as an analytic purpose, so treat it like a concept car. You can see different functionalities, but picture yourself what you or how you would leverage those functions. So with that, let's jump in. Chimdi and Prasann has done a very good job in introducing myself. So that's it. I'm not going to spend any time on this slide. So now let's talk about Figma. For those who are not familiar with it, later I will be showing you what interface look like and how to use some basic function. But for now, all you need to do is, it's a relatively user-friendly software when it comes, if you compare that with Adobe Illustrator. It's a web-based tool, meaning that you don't have to download anything on your laptop to do anything that I will be presenting later. And like I said, it's easier to use than Illustrator, but way more powerful than PowerPoint. And later you will see why I say that. And very similar to the community of Tableau, which is the data fam, Figma also have a lot of community-based instructional videos on YouTube, a lot of learning blogs available on Medium. So it's easy to master this tool using public and free resources, which is very interesting to me because that is so similar to Tableau community. And it has been leveraged by many companies in developing their own app. If you have a phone app on any, look at your phone and the apps in it, chances are the new ones are often being developed from Figma. So it's been well used. So the more people we are using it, the more people can learn it because there's the amount of resources up there. And as an example, the company that I'm currently working on, Discover, I know in person that the UX UI team at Discover, they're using Figma to design stuff. So when I talk to them and then start to leverage the tool in my own dashboard design in the company, it's definitely not starting from scratch. There are already a lot of resources available. So, and most importantly, Figma has been leveraged by a lot of data fam in their own personal projects. If you go to Viz of the Day or go check all of those dashboards or visits published on Tableau Public, a lot of them has non-conventional looking, often done on Figma or Adobe Illustrators. And today I'm going to tell you a couple of examples of how we can leverage both tools together to create an analytics dashboard. So first of all, these are what I've found so far that one can do using both tools. And later I'm going to quickly show you examples of each of them. So first of all, it's about prototyping. Prototype or wireframe, for those who are not familiar with the term, is basically a non-data versions of your dashboard, a planning version of your dashboard. It's a sketch. It could be as presented on a screen here. It could be done on a piece of whiteboard, for example, here. If you're looking at my screen, I literally drew it out. It's here. Well, you can see it here. Well, use your own imagination. It's blurred. Or it's something that you can use Figma to quickly sketch things out. It could be something interactive, something non-interactive. It could be something that's more with a higher fidelity with a real dashboard, or something that's really sketchy, but still serve its purpose. That's one of the ways to use Figma to do that. And I'm not going to present a prototype here today, but later, if I have extra time during Q&A, feel free to ask me more about that. I can show examples of what I've done. The second way to use Figma in Tableau dashboard is to create a background image. For example, on the left here, you can see that I use Figma to put a lot of squares and text together. And then with the logo of a company and then some very dull color, I quickly create an image. And with the image input function on Tableau, actually, you can put this image at the most bottom layer and then just put your charts above it, like how I indicated here. And again, today the talk's not about this. Last week, I just presented this in Denver talk. So I'm going to share the link to this presentation deck so that you can check out the resources. I'm going to put this in the chat. Okay, where's the chat? Here. So feel free to click it. And then if you click to this slide, you will see the presentation YouTube recording. It's just out yesterday. And here's quickly show you, usually in a group or in a company, when we use Figma, the more and more we use it, we always start with a template. For example, here you can see that this is a template that's very similar to what's actually being used in the organization that I've been working at. And with a template like this, all we have to do is just substitute the dashboard name, put in the company logo, and then put in the tabs names that we need to, and then just reorganize the white card in the middle. You'll see something like this, and then you just export it into Tableau and then leverage it. So it will look like this. The third way of using Figma and Tableau together, which I will be demonstrating today, is to create an annotation layer. Annotation layer is kind of create a sandwich layer where at the bottom you have the fancy Figma background, and in the middle you have all the charts, and then on the top it's a semi-transparent layer for you to provide more context on how to use the dashboard. And then you can use the show hide button to control, to show or hide that note. And this is the thing that we'll be talking about today. And before we do that, I'm just going to show you the dashboard. The dashboard links in the chat. And if one of the hosts can keep track on the links and then keep on sharing them throughout my speech, will be appreciated. And this is actually the dashboard. You can see that it has all of the functions as a normal dashboard. You can click on the tab on the left, which today, as I said, this is just a concept card. So when you click on it, you're not going to see anything. It's just going to be saying like, coming soon. But here, the show hide annotation button, when you click on it, you will see more information on how to use the dashboard. For example, we know that the dashboard is refreshed daily at a certain time. We know that profit ratio actually has a formula, provide you more context on how that was calculated, and then more on how to use the dashboard. And you can hide it too, so it doesn't get in the way. So now let's come back to the demonstration. By the end of this demonstration, you should be able to list at least 2 ways of leveraging Figma on Tableau dashboard. You should be able to describe the overall process of creating a semi-transparent annotation layer. You should be able to apply the layer on a dashboard, and you should be able to identify several useful online learning resources to learn more about this. So again, today's presentation, it's not meant for you to memorize everything, and please do not attempt to do it. Just sit, chill, enjoy my presentation and think about what's possible if you could leverage 1 or 2 of the knowledge points today. So let's jump in. Oh, I've just said about that earlier. Oh, by the way, in the link, in the links that I provided, one of them's a worksheet. You can go to click that worksheet link. You can actually download it and then try to follow along with the video recording, but please do not do it now. I didn't build this with a pace of having people following around today. But if you have questions about anything that I present, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter with the questions, or even schedule a meeting with me. I'm more than happy to discuss. Cool. Now let's jump in. These are all of the handy shortcuts that is going to help you with your work. Of course, there are way more shortcuts than this, but I just want to show you a couple of them at the actual file here. So first of all, zoom in and out. I will be doing that very rapidly throughout the presentation. When you click Control or Command on your laptop, if you're using a MacBook, click Control and then just roll your mouse. That's zoom in, zoom out. Very straightforward to things that you've been using on other apps. And then to move things horizontally or vertically, you just need to click that thing, click Shift, and then move your cursor. You can see that, okay, I'm gonna move it here. Without holding the Shift, I can move things on 2 dimensions. But if I click Shift, and I can easily move things on 1 axis, either Y or X axis. These are the top 2 things that I want you to know. The rest, when I do that, I'm just gonna speak aloud for future you to attend. So now let's begin. If you download the worksheet, which future attendees, you may, these are the things that will be covered. I will be talking about how to create a new file, give you an introduction to the lay of land. I'll be talking about how to create a frame, which is a canvas, how to create basic shapes and text box, how to import image, how to assemble the semi-transparent annotation layer, and export that layer out as a frame, as an image to your Tableau dashboard. So now let's begin. How to create a new file. First of all, you need to have a Figma account. To sign up for Figma, it's free. To use it, I've been using Figma for 3 years. I believe until now there's no file limit for you to create things. You just cannot collaborate with other people's, but you can create unlimited amount of files and put in your draft. And if you, after you create a Figma account and then sign in at figma.com, you will reach a place that look kind of like this. And just need to click the new design file. You will create a new file, just like how you would create a new Microsoft Excel file. And on the top here, you can double click it and then change the name. That's how you rename a file. So far it's quite user friendly. Now let's go back to my actual file. Oh, here, 1, 2, 3. I believe I save it here so that I don't have to think. Okay, now let's come back here. Let's introduce you to the lay of land here. So first of all, like I demonstrated earlier, on the top here, this is the file name. You can change it by double clicking it. And on the left side here, this is actually the layer or hierarchy of the dashboard. That's very similar to the hierarchy layer on the left, bottom left at Tableau dashboard, just like from the bottom layer to the top layer. And of course, this is a very complicated presentation deck. That's why there are a lot of crazy things going on the left side. And on the right side here, on the top left here, these are the major elements that you will be using today to create the semi-transparent annotation layer, including the hashtag is the frame, which is the canvas. I'll explain that more later. The square is basically a rectangle. Draw line, draw arrows or circles, and insert image. All of them are accessible on the top left here. And a text box, like the T is a text box. So all of the things are the things you need to know today. The rest, I would allow you to explore them yourself and find joy within the journey. On the right side here, this is a panel to show you the properties of whatever that you click. Very similar to PowerPoint as well. For example, here, when I click on this square, you can see that it's set at, okay, the fill, which is the color, it's this color. I can move it here. So now that's its color. And then the number here is the opacity. 100% is opaque, and then 60% is like kind of transparent. You can also see the effect here. It has an effect, which is a shadow. You can see the shadows in which X and Y axis respect to the object and then how blurry it is. You can play with this parameter to create something soft or something solid. And then for outline, it's actually called stroke on Figma. Outlines called stroke on Figma. Similar things, you can change the weight of the stroke by this number. You can type it 20. Now it's 20 is a little bit too thick. Let's try 1. So 1 is thinner, and then 5 is thicker. Cool. That's all you need to know for now. Now let's start by actually creating. Draw a frame. So what's a frame? A frame is basically a space for you to create things, and then later you will be exporting that frame. It's a rectangular shape thing that essentially act like a canvas. So this is a frame. And to rename a frame, very similar to how you rename the object, just on the top left, the frame number here, double click it, you can type in whatever you want. That's how you rename it. Now it has been renamed. And let's talk about resizing the frame. When I work on Tableau, I know that I often use fixed size dashboard. And I believe that's what we usually recommend, because we don't want the dashboards to go all crazy between different interfaces. So the one that I always use is 1308 and 800. I don't know why, I just love the 08 more. I know why, because it's divisible by 12. Yeah. So that's the frame. And you can see that if I quickly create a, let's say, circle here, if I put in the frame, it's in the frame. But if I put it at a corner, it won't show what's outside of the frame. So that's the purpose of the frame. And the thing that I'd like to introduce you more importantly today is the frame color, because we will be talking about how to create an annotation layer. As you saw earlier, the annotation layer was kind of purplish. In real life, you can just make it slightly dark gray. It's fine. But here, just to demonstrate, to click the fill on the right column, click it, and then click the color. Now it will be very purple. And then now we need to make it slightly opaque. So reduce the opacity to 36. So now it's semi-transparent. So that's how you create a semi-transparent frame. And I'm going to make it just a little bit more opaque so that we easier for the demonstration. The other thing that's very important for you is to create grid, which to me, it's way better than a grid on PowerPoint. I'm going to click this layout grid icon on the right side. Plus means adding the grid. And then here you can see that by default, I'm going to change the grid color to white. You can see that by default, the grid size is 10 pixel. You can move it to 12 pixel or 24 pixel. I usually do 12. The grid here provides us a very easy way to put objects and align them along with the grid. So it's easier for you to create things that looks organized. For example, here, this rectangle, I can just move it around. You can, if you're using Figma, you will realize that it would click to the grid, which is very convenient because it won't do that on PowerPoint, at least not intuitively. And you say that, oh, the clicking, is it really that precise? Now let's zoom in like crazy. Control or Command and then scroll. You can see that it's really, really precise. So it's, to me, that's very user-friendly. And the other thing that I forget to say is to adjust the size of a grid, to adjust the size of a frame, you can do what I did earlier. Just type in the number, like now 600. But the fancy thing about Figma is that you can change the width and height by just ask it to do the math for you. For example, I want it to be twice as wide. Boom. You don't have to do that math. You can even do something like, oh, I want it to be 4 times as shorter, divided by 5. So you don't have to do that math, that mental math. So kind of save you a lot of time. The other thing that you can do really well is if you hover your mouse on the X, Y, WH, you will see the left-right arrow. You will see the left-right arrow. You click it, hold it, and drag. You can have a very precise pixel control, which a lot of visualization tool that's publicly accessible still not able to do. So that's how you do. That's how you control a frame. Now let's talk about how to create shapes. I'm sorry, it looks like a lot of grid here, right? And these grid, they will help you in creating, but sometimes you don't want to see them. So to hide all of the grids simultaneously on your keyboard is Shift G. Shift G to show, Shift G to hide. Now let's talk about creating shapes. The most common shape in a dashboard is rectangles. So now click the square and then that's a rectangle. And to change the fill is just like how you change the color of a frame earlier. So things very similar. And to add outline, you click the stroke, you will by default have a black outline. You can change the thickness like this. You can put the outline at the outside of the square instead of the inside of the square, or like that, or the central part of the square based on your need. I do inside here. And to create shadow, you can just click the effects plus, and then it would have a very default shadow. To exaggerate what a shadow is, I'm going to move them out like that. Do you see the shadow? And to blur it, that's how you blur it. To spread it is make it X, Y, Z direction bigger. And then the color of the shadow, you can make it red like that. So don't do this on a dashboard, please. I'm just for demonstration purpose. Okay. Another powerful thing that one can do on Figma that on PowerPoint you can do too, but not as convenient, is to copy and paste the property of an object. For example, I love this square. I love the color. I know that it matched my company's color. So what you can do is just copy the property of the square by on your keyboard. I'm going to tell you how to do that on a mouse. Right-hand click, copy and paste as copy property. And then on the object that you want to change, right-hand click, copy paste as paste property. That you would only paste one of the properties. But if I once, oh, I know why. That's the square. That's the square. Yeah, I don't know why I group it. Let me ungroup it real quick to not confuse people. Okay, the square here. Do it again, copy and paste property. And then here, I'm going to paste the property. Boom. So now the square would have exactly the same property. This is going to be helpful for you because if you receive a template or if you have built a template once, let's say this white card, I just like how the shadow is already very soft. It has like a certain angle, a rounded edge. You don't have to try to recreate it. Just right-hand click, copy properties, and then paste properties. It will be easier if you know the shortcut, which is Command Control C and Command Control V. Yep. Or to create something look like this, Command Option C or Control Alternate C, and then Control Alternate V. Boom. So that's how you create things rapidly. And talk about all of this. Now let's talk about duplication. You can do the typical thing, Control C, Control V. Now you get a second thing. Or faster, you can do Control D, like donkey, to duplicate things. And on Figma, because it would predict where you want to put things, it would do something like this. Like let's say this shape, I can Control D, have a duplicate, put it here. And then when I Control D, it was like, okay, it's going to be that far away, that far away. So easier for you to create things rapidly. Now let's talk about how to lock a shape. Let's say I want to draw something above this card, but I don't want to touch that card by accident. So here on the left side, you see that lock icon. You can click it. Now it's locked, like I cannot click it. Now you can easily and without any anxiety on it, just create things without having to click that thing under by accident. And you can unlock it later, which I believe is square number 3. Cool. Now let's talk about how to group things, which when you create an annotation layer, you need to group a lot of text box and arrow together. This box and this box, I want to group them like this. Just select all of them and then right-hand click group, just like how you would have done it on PowerPoint. Or on your keyboard, it's Control or Command G. I can group a text box. And for example, this is a text box. And then this is an arrow that I will be, this is the arrow that I'll be using. After perfectly aligning them, you can group them like that. So now you have something that you can use later. And on Figma, to input a text, you use the text function here. You can type whatever that you want. That's a text, but you can see that I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This is just a text. It's not a text box. When you change the color, you change the color of the text, not the text box. And please do not use a rectangle and then the text, group them together and do that every time. It's going to take us too much time. And the box won't adjust the size based on the text. So to create something that would automatically adjust, I'm going to teach you something more advanced here because I believe you guys can handle it. It's called auto layout. Auto layout. Right-hand click, add auto layout. Now, it actually have a padding surrounding the text box, and you can change the color of the padding like that. And then here you can see that auto layout on the right side here. That is the left-right padding, just like a container padding on Tableau dashboard. And that's top-bottom padding. And the most amazing thing is now it would adjust it XYZ based on your text. So very convenient. So these are all you need to know. Oh, and also how to create an arrow. So an arrow, that's an arrow. And if you want an arrow, like if you're like me, a little bit of just want things to align perfectly, you can see that when you move the arrow to 90 degree, you can either move them 90 degree like this, but you can see that it's a little bit difficult. In this angle rotation sign on the top right, just enter 0, it will go there, or type 90, it will go to the direction that you want. So allow you to do precise control. And you will be like, okay, so how do I draw an arrow with a corner like this? So here's an example. Let's say I want to connect this. I'm going to get rid of the clutter here a little bit. I want to connect this text box with this text box. You can do this. Connect it here, connect there. But okay, the like random angle arrow just piss you off. Here's what you can do. Double click it. You can see the middle point here. Hover your mouse over the middle point, drag it down. Once it reaches 90 degrees, it would have a red line. And then now do it again in the middle section here. Click it and drag it. Now you will have a only 90 degree angle arrow. And again, you do not have to get fancy here. I just try to show you it can be fancy. If you change the corner, the radius corner. Oh, what did I just do? Let me just, oh, by the way, this go without saying, Control Z is undo. Okay, here, 12. Okay, so that's the arrow. You can change, okay, you don't like sharp angle, you want solid angle. Sure, if you want circle, you can go circle. Cool. So with all of this, I want you to come back and look at this thing that may look a little bit taunting to you at the beginning. At the beginning, you'll be like, okay, I don't have the time to create all of this template. And I have to be frank, the first template's always the hardest because someone has to create it. But the fact is, once you put it together, it is just square, text, and text box. And here I just put a triangle there just to show you that we can create triangle, but you don't have to do that. And then with this template, you can quickly, here, I'm just going to show you this plugin. It has been presented in last week, but I'm going to quickly show you here. I can quickly split it into, let's say, 3 column, 2 row to put 6 KPI. Boom. And now you can export this to put 6 KPIs and the line chart. My personal experience is the more you use it, the more template you have, the more different columns and row combinations that you have, the quicker you can recreate it. So that's been the experience. And it goes with the same with the annotation layer template. I've created this template here. You can see that it's just text box and arrow that put in a very organized way. When we use it to annotate a dashboard, we never start from scratch. We just grab this, put it on top of our image, and then just move things around and then change the text. And then you will quickly have an annotation layer, which is what I will be demonstrating today. So, okay. Before that, let's talk about one more thing first, how to import an image. Because if you were to create an annotation layer, you need to know where to put things, right? So usually what I do is I'll take a screenshot of the dashboard. I have taken a screenshot of the dashboard. I put it on my desktop. You can easily just drag it in from your desktop and then just put it down. I'm going to do it again. Drag it from your desktop or whatever folder that you have, drop it down. That you have an image. And here, of course, I've already cropped it perfectly. It's like getting something from HelloFresh. This event is not sponsored by HelloFresh. To resize something that you crop, put your cursor on one of the edge, hold shift on your computer, and then that's how you reshape it. To crop something, you can use the crop function on the top here, and then it works like PowerPoint, which I'm not going to spend time demonstrating it here. And that's an image. And like I said earlier, I want to create above this image. I don't want to move it by accident because position is imperial in this case. So I can lock it. Oh, I'm sorry, that's hide it. This is locking it. This is locking it. So after logging it like this, I can just move my template. I'm going to quickly duplicate it, Control D, move the annotation layer. Here you can see that, oh, it's at the bottom. Why? Because it is literally at the bottom of the screenshot. On the left side here, you can just move it up. Now it would be literally above your locked image. So here I put it here. And then I'm going to quickly show you how I annotate certain part of the dashboard. For example, here, I'm gonna hide the thing that I'm not using the eye icon on the left. I'm not gonna use any of this, but I can use this one. I'm gonna duplicate it, Control D, move it here. Here, I can quickly type equals to let me zoom in a little bit. It's very profit divided by sales. So immediately I have defined the ratio. Or here, again, duplicates, move down, menu. And then again, duplicates, move down. And I want it to go straight down. So I hold the shift on my keyboard, download. And you just keep on doing this very quickly and then put things together and then hide or delete the things that you don't want like this. And eventually you will get something that look like this, which I'm going to move it above the image that I've just created. I understand that this whole thing feels like someone's doing a cooking show. I'm going to cook a turkey, but it's 6 hours. I'm going to show it to you in 2 hours, not in 2 hours, in 20 minutes. So yeah, this is the concept behind it. Again, today you're not supposed to memorize all the steps, but to get a main idea of what can be accomplished. So now you have an image. What do? Well, first of all, you need to hide the thing that you don't need. For example, I do not need the thing under it. And now let's talk about how to export this semi-transparent layer as an image. To export something, first on the right side, find the export, click the plus sign, and then to make sure that the resolution is sharp, I usually go 2 times of the size of the dashboard. And then before I export it, I would include the bounding box, basically easier when the semi-transparent layer that you have, it's kind of subtle. And then click export annotation. That file should appear in your download folder. And then it will be a one solid PNG file. I personally find that Tableau Tableau's compatible with a PNG image. SVG works fine, but it doesn't do well with shadow. I'm not familiar with the technicality behind it, but that's based on the experience. So now with that, let's go to Tableau and put things together. I'm going to see how much time that I have. Do I still have about 10 minutes? Cool. I see Chris's. Yeah. If Chris started to like shake his head, I was like, okay, I'm going to let him talk. Okay, now let's go to my dashboard. And again, someone can put a link in the chat. The dashboard is downloadable. So later, please download it. And then you will see that when you download and try to edit it, you're not going to affect my file. A lot of people didn't realize it, but when you download the dashboard and try to edit it, it would publish it in your folder, not in your space, not my space. So don't afraid of messing my file. But if you are a hacker, please do that. Okay, cool. So now in this dashboard, you will see that I already lay out like step 1 to 6 is how to add the background image, which I used to present in last week Denver talk. Please watch it if you want to learn more about that. But today we're going to start from a good dashboard, but now we're going to add an annotation layer on it. So to do that, go to the dashboard view and on the bottom left here, click image, drag it to the center, drop. Oh, I'm sorry, because it's tile, it's not going to work. You have to float that annotation layer. Floating image, drag to the middle, drop. And here, please choose and then select the image that you want to use. One sec, I cannot move this thing. Okay, go to desktop and then I put it here. Okay, cool. And when you put it in, remember earlier we exported as 2 times as big. It's not going to fit if you don't click fit image. So please click fit image. and then enter. And you'll see that it will fit this frame. But because Tableau and Figma are using pixel instead of one in centimeter, another one in pixel or inches, it's making it very easy to make sure that the size is compatible. So here I can quickly adjust the X and Y to be 0, 0, and then the width and height to be the width and height of that dashboard. So when you create an annotation layer, make sure both match. And when it match, it would fit like a glove, like this. And then after that, you just need to add the show hide button. So yeah, here is to add the show hide button, click the image, and then here, add show hide button. And then where's the pop out screen? Sometimes it disappears. Let me try it again. Here, it's here. So that's the show hide icon. I'm going to move it here. It's already pretty close to the final product. You can see that it's actually show hide, but with the ambiguous X and ambiguous hamburger, no one's going to know what's about. So to be a better data stewards, let's use text to, when it's shown, I'm going to type hide this. When it's hide, type show this. Please type show and hide annotation. I'm just saving my time. When it's show, I want it to be black background, the font is bold, and when it's hide, I want it to be light background and no color at the back, like that. Okay, and then you can format this by here. This is the thing about Tableau that I don't like. You cannot do divided by 3. It's not going to work. Please do the math like how your high school teacher's teaching you, like that. Boom. So if you format everything correctly, it should look like this. Ta-da. That's how you add an annotation layer into a dashboard. In the middle part, I spent a lot of time talking about the technicalities, but when you're actually creating it, you just need to put a template above the image and then quickly edit the text and then export it. And please understand that in the worksheet that we have just provided, we already have the template for the background image and the template for the annotation layer. You can just change the color to fit your company's need or your client's needs, and then that should be a very good starting point for you. Now let's go back to the presentation. So with that, I'm just gonna quickly go through the closing statements and then let y'all ask me whatever questions that you want. First of all, here are some resources for you to advance your learning because it shouldn't stop by the end of my presentation. First of all, please subscribe to all these very resourceful YouTube channels that's done by both the Data Fam and Figma. Autumn Batani, Lindsay's YouTube channels, they have a lot of in-depth explanations on a certain functions of Figma and how that could be leveraged on prototyping, on background image making, on creating an annotation layers. And also subscribe to Figma's own YouTube channel because it has a lot of in-depth explanations on a lot of things that you may use it even outside of dashboard creation. And also Shantili's, Junganauts, Pradeep's, Kumar's, Robert Crocker's, Robert Jensik's, they have a lot of online resources. They're not necessarily videos, but if you subscribe to if you follow their Tableau public account, you will see a lot of examples of how things could be leveraged using both tools. And of course, a lot of people didn't realize that, but if you go to Tableau Public, and I'm gonna drag my Tableau Public here. Boom. Go to Tableau Public and go to Business Dashboard. A lot of the dashboard there were actually created using Figma. And with that said, I do have to be responsible and say that sometimes it makes sense that the dashboard presented here is not exactly in depth when it comes to the analytics because it's trying to show the different possibilities. So don't try to put yourself in that shoe and say that, okay, if I leverage part of these elements, what can I create with my context, business context? Boom, 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 here. And also, if you go to portfolio websites like Behance and Dribbles, there are a lot of examples of how different UX UIs could be used in developing analytics dashboard. And several takeaways here. First of all, I hope that by the end of this talk, you would feel less scary about the background image or the annotation layers. They're all just boxes, text, shapes, and arrows arranged in a meaningful way to your analytics needs. And leveraging Figma, especially with existing templates, really can accelerate your dashboard productions and enhance its functionalities in a way that now things look more organized and then hopefully more adhere to your client's branding guide or your business guide. And let Tableau do the data visualization part, because that's the tool. You should be using it, but you can let Figma, maybe consider letting Figma taking care of the rest of the UI aspect. And this demonstration should be the beginning of you trying to use both tools, be experimental and critical at the same times. And I am more than happy to see you sharing the results and then promote this conversation. So lastly, special thanks to Annabelle, Chimdi, and Prasann for the talk invitations. A lot of predecessors have been helping me in learning the tools, even though they didn't teach me proactively, but I definitely been binging a lot of their contents. Discover Financial Services Credit BI team for letting me using Figma and then use that to build the design system for our team. And my brother, my friends been helping me testing the mic, testing the slides, testing a lot of things, and just be emotional support in the whole experience. I really appreciate it. With that, I yield the floor and give it back to Chimdi. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kevin. Great presentation. In the interest of time, I'm going to encourage everyone, if you have some questions, please just pop them in the Q&A. And Kevin, if you don't mind just going in there to interact with it, that'd be awesome. I'm going to share my screen again, and so that Prasann can help us bring on our next speaker.
You're going to need help after that one.
Okay, guys. So I think I'm sorry. Okay, so I think we enjoyed the last session for Tableau X Figma. I know Figma is quite intriguing when you start working with it, and it's really interesting. But the next session that is about to be here is really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to the topic. But first, I'm going to introduce our speaker here. So Chris McClellan is here. Chris is a freelance consultant based in Sydney. He usually, you can see him answering online questions and helping people with all their Tableau questions. And also he helps people with from data engineering to dashboard designing and training itself. He started using his Tableau and Alteryx journey in 2014. Wow. He's a 5-time Tableau Forum Ambassador. He started his own business in 2018 and enjoys making sure clients are getting the best results out of Tableau and their data stack. That's huge. Like 5 times Tableau Forum Ambassador. I don't know like how much knowledge we are yet to extract from. And Chris has used Tableau almost every day. That's the fun fact about him, even on the weekends. And today we are going to hear him and understand about web data connectors. I'm really looking forward to this, and I'll give over to Chris to take it forward. Thank you, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I still don't know how I'm going to follow up from Kevin's presentation. And I sort of feel sorry for the people who are on the call, because there's like a full brain of knowledge on Figma, and now I'm going to do a full brain on knowledge of web data connectors. So I assume you can see my screen. Looks like it's working properly from my side. But my presentation won't be as interactive as Kevin's. I'm walking through some things, but I'm not going to be doing live coding, and I'll explain that as I go. So just a little bit about me. I covered that off, but if you need to contact me online, that's a variety of ways to do it. And although I'm based in Sydney, I will be at TC23 this year if you need to meet me there. So today, as the presentation is about, we're covering what a web data connector is. We're doing a walkthrough of how to use it in version 2, and then how to use it in version 3, and then alternatives. I will not be doing live coding. It's just too technical, and it'd be about a 2-hour presentation. I nodded to Kevin, even though it was over time, to keep him going, because I just wanted to see the end of his presentation. And I thought it was a little bit mean to sort of cut him off when he was almost there, and you just had to see that last bit. But you'll see in my slides, when that little camera appears in the bottom right corner, that's the best time to take a screenshot. So it doesn't happen everywhere, but as I build up the slide, I know at TT myself, you sort of go, I'll take a photo of that. And then something gets added onto the slide. You need to take the photo again. Anyway, digital cameras, who cares? But if you see that little camera icon in the bottom right corner, you've got a few seconds to, obviously in this session, take a screenshot, but in real life, take a photo. So to understand about Tableau, we need to actually understand, to understand about web data connectors, we need to understand how Tableau works with other different connections. So we can actually connect Tableau desktop to any sort of thing, like files, Excel, SQL databases, other sort of files, published data sources. And a published data source is after we've actually published the data to server or cloud, we can pull that data source back and then use that in Tableau desktop itself. And we can use APIs. Take a screenshot if you like. But I'm going to assume you know how to use all those other file types. The API is the new thing that we're talking about. So what is an API? Application Programming Interface. If I go to Wikipedia, it says this, which I'm not going to read out. People can read through it if they want, but basically an API is software that you basically don't see. It is when computers are talking to computers. It is not when there is a human being there at all. Because API can be very complicated, and it is a computer-to-computer interface, as I said. But we need to know what an API is, because a web data connector is to try and get, I think that's on the next slide, is to try and get Tableau to talk to an API. So how does it work? Every API in the world basically does this. We need to send the API a method. There's a lot of different methods, but these are just 4 of the common ones. The get, a post, a pause, or a delete. The API, which is code that you are interacting with that you have not written, the API then goes out to the cloud or a database, maybe a database in the cloud, and returns that data back as either JSON or XML. And we need to process that data in Tableau. So what really happens is that, what does that mean from an API point of view? We can get data from a lot of different places. We can get data about the weather, the currency exchange, census data, government data, financial data. Almost anything in the world these days has an API. There's a few lists here. So there's a list on GitHub, which has got public APIs. There's another list of APIs. We can do things like even pull our data from Spotify. If you've got a Spotify account, Spotify has, I'll just bring up that last bit. Spotify has a lot of APIs. To use an API, as I said, we need to use a web data connector, but every API, even though it works the same way, will have different connections, different settings. Every API is different. Every API will involve different sorts of coding to get access to the API and to return the data to Tableau. So to do that, we need the web data connector in the middle. To create our web data connector, we need to know how the API works and then how to construct the web data connector properly so that it works with Tableau Desktop. So there's a lot of reading to do. If we were using version 2, and I'll explain what the different versions are in a minute. Version 2 of the web data connector, these are some of the links that you would read to understand how a web data connector works. So the version 2 web data connectors have been deprecated very recently. So that means from 2000, when you upgrade to 2023.1, Tableau's sort of flagging that don't use this in the future because it's an older technology that's supported up until when 2022.4 goes end of life. So if you're running Tableau server, you only upgrade every few years or so, or even in the next year, you can use a version 2 of the web data connector until those things happen. Deprecated also means that it's suggested not to use it. It will still work. Tableau will just support it less in the future. And the new version is obviously version 3, only supported in 22.3 and later. And the difference between these, we'll go over it, there's a completely different logic between how you write a version 2 web data connector and how you write a version 3 web data connector. So we're writing a version 2 web data connector, and you'll see up in the top right, we're talking about version 2 for quite a while now. There's a tutorial, and a lot of the tutorials online do not talk about authentication for APIs. So if you need to, again, pull your data from Spotify, you need to tell Spotify who you are so that it knows to only give me my data when I can't access anyone else's data. So that's usually not covered in these tutorials, and that makes it a little bit more complex when you need to do that authentication as well. But normally on a version 2, this is just the simple earthquake demo that you would get from Tableau just to sort of see how it works. And there's 8 steps to do that. We'll walk through those steps now. So step 1, and again, this is why I'm not live coding, because this is a lot of code, and if you get one little typo wrong, the whole thing's not going to work. So step 1 is to, I need to get rid of this down here so I can read. Step 1 is to create the HTML page. So create some HTML. This is just boilerplate. The most important thing on this page is line 12, which is the reference to the JavaScript file that you are going to create. We'll do that in the next step. All those other steps, I don't care what those settings are. So lines 5 through to 10, that's just boilerplate stuff. Just type it in, make sure it works, make sure you don't have a typo. Line 3, you are naming the name of this page. Sort of doesn't matter as much. You probably won't see that page after you finish testing. And what I usually do is just create this code, make sure that line 12 is the only line that you are changing to make sense. And obviously, this file is in HTML. The next file, if we're referenced on line 12, is the JavaScript file. So this is our JavaScript file. We've now changed languages over to JavaScript. We need to create a connector object. Again, there's nothing to do here. Just make sure that you type everything in perfectly, or let's go and copy it from the boilerplate that Tableau provides for you. After we've done the connection, we need to create an event listener, which means when we're clicking on the button on the HTML page, we need to create a listener on that button. So when the button clicks, you do something, which is what we're saying at line 2. The only thing that changed in here is at line 3, in the quote, this is important, USGS earthquake feed. That's going to be the name of your data source in Tableau by the time we actually get up to do that. Then we get to test the connector. So it's not fully working, but we can actually test it out. There's 2 ways to do this. We can use our local WDC SDK, so we can set up our web data connector on our local machine. So we've got to have npm installed, and we start that, and we run through the simulator locally. We could also go out to the simulator that Tableau provides and run through that. So we do that, press the button to run the connector and test it out. I'll show that in a little bit. Step 5 is we define the data schema. So this is where you need to know exactly what data you're getting from the API. You can see here that we've got 4 different fields. So we've got an ID, mag, title, and a location. And the ID is going to come through as a string, and the mag is going to come through, and it's going to be called magnitude in Tableau. Float, the title will be a title, that's a string, and the location is a geometry object. So then we can actually do mapping of this data, the earthquake data, as a map in Tableau quite easily. And then we define the table under that. So we're saying this is the name of the table. It uses all those columns above. That's what things do. All this goes in the same JavaScript file. Once we've done that, we need to get data. So we've written on our JavaScript to say, okay, I'm going to create a table, or I'm going to retrieve a table of this format. And line 2 is where we actually go out to the API itself. In this case, we're actually going directly to a GeoJSON file, pulling back that data, processing it, and putting it all into the table that we've just defined. So by the time we get down to line 14, we've pulled in the data, we've looped around all the data, and it's all sitting there ready to be used by Tableau Desktop or whatever Tableau connection we're using for our web data connector. So once you get up to this point, you can test it in the simulator again. I'm just using the online simulator here. So go back to the simulator, type in the link that you've got, click on the Start Interactive Phase button, and you'll see it comes up with the table structure. Okay? If that's all, like, if you actually can't get to this point, there's something wrong with the code. Usually you do get to this point. Okay, the metadata is what I'm looking at. So we've got a table. We know what the IDs are. We know what the types are. We know what the aliases are. And I can fetch the table data. And then I would get this sort of result back in the simulator. That means that it will work properly in Tableau. So I can then go and deploy that. This is still version 2. So if I'm deploying on Tableau server, a server admin must approve all web data connectors. In Tableau Cloud, it works a little bit differently. But the first thing on both server and cloud is I have to host that web data connector file somewhere. So you need to have somewhere else, some web server somewhere that you put the HTML and the JavaScript file on so that Tableau can actually connect to them quickly. On the Tableau server side, you have to add it to the safe list and the secondary list. You then have to allow or disallow whether you can do an extract request on your web data connectors and then restart the server. But on the Tableau Cloud side, again, you've just got to host it, and then you've got to install and configure Tableau Bridge. If you don't have Tableau Bridge in Tableau Cloud, web data connectors don't work at all. So just a comparison of the two. We've looked at version 2 on the left, deprecated from now onwards, but still supported for a while. We've got to host our files. We code in HTML and JavaScript. We can use the web data connector on the desktop, and we need to use Git and Node or use the online simulator. Version 3 is, I was going to say version 3 is a little bit different. Version 3 is a lot different. So version 3, I must have 2022.3 or onwards. It will not work in earlier versions. They've changed the whole logic. So they now use a thing called a Taco file, and I'll go into details about what that is, but not just on it. You're coding in JavaScript and TypeScript and XML. So not as much of the HTML anymore. You've got to learn some different languages to do that. When we're using version 3, it acts as a native connector on desktop or prep or server. But the machine configuration we've got to have for doing this is a lot more technical. We've got to have a certain version of Node and NPM and Python and JDK. And on Windows, we need the Visual Studio build tool, or on Mac, you need at least the Xcode client command line tools or a full version of Xcode. So there's quite a bit to do to get to version 3, but it's also a lot better as well. A lot more streamlined, easier to use. If I was looking at version 3, again, they've got an example of the same demo, earthquake demo, why I chose it, so you can actually see the difference between the two. And there's a 10-step process here. I'm not going to go through all 10 steps, but you can see how the steps are different. So we've got to ensure all dependencies, we've got to install the toolkit, we've got to verify that everything's working. The beauty about this is at step 5, you can just create a connector from some boilerplate code. Type in a command, and it will create a brand new web data connector for you. But then you've got to move into that directory and change all the code to be what you actually want it to be, create the Taco file and run the connector. And then it just appears as if it was a native connection on Tableau desktop. So I think that's the next slide. Okay, no, we're not quite there yet. So this is a lot of coding. This is why I'm not going to code this live, because you can get stuck in this loop a lot. I've done it before. That little bit in the middle can take you a long time of reading the Tableau documentation, so know how the web data connector works properly, reading the API documentation to know how the API works properly, change your code to make sure that you're accessing the API the right way. And then finally, you'll get to the end and you'll just go, yes, I've got one API work. There is a lot of examples out there for version 2. So a lot of people use Spotify or Facebook or Google Ads or whatever. A lot of things have an API, and you need to read the documentation for that API to understand how it works in Tableau itself. Every API is different because every API has been written by a different person. So the comparison between the two is on version 2, so older versions of Tableau deprecated at the moment, but it still works properly. I can go in and say connect to the web data connector, and when that box pops up, I'd have to type in the HTML link to the web data connector that I've written. Version 3, as I said, it comes up as a native connection. So as you're creating the Taco file, you give it a name, and if you gave your web data connector the name my first connector by vendor name, that's what would appear in Tableau Desktop. So you can see the difference here between the two. Congratulations, you've got a web data connector that works properly. But is there any questions at the moment? There's a whole heap of chat and there's a few questions. I'll see if I can answer them live maybe. So first question, is there anything to show the selected filters along with the data when exported to an Excel on Tableau server? I don't think that's more of an API question, or I can answer that later on. What happens if you've got more than 100 columns to map? Do I have to go through them one by one, creating the structure? Yes, you do, because that's the API. As I said, it's a lot of coding. That's why I'm not going to live code this, because there's a lot of typing to do. I think it's sort of cheating if I just do a copy and paste, which I could have done. There's a lot of things to line up properly. So it's the same with Kevin's talk, where there's a whole heap of things to change in Figma. In here, you've got to write some HTML, you've got to write some JavaScript, you've possibly got to write some XML, you've got to have your laptop set up the right way. You've got to read all the API documentation to understand how to talk to the API. Even for authentication, what sort of authentication does it use to make it work properly? I was looking at an API the other day and I read the documentation, and someone who'd written sort of like a hacky approach to the API was saying, if you type in, you've got to type in a username and password with a token, and that token only expires every 6 months. And I sort of cheated a bit and I went, so I don't have to use the username and password all the time. I'll just grab the token. It's going to last 6 months. That's what the guy says. 4 days later, the API is working because the tokens had expired. So I have to go back and change a few things and go, okay, every time I use this, I have to actually type in the username or, in code, the username and the password and get the token, and then make sure I use that token when I'm going to the API that I really need, because the tokens would expire. There's a lot of security like that built in. So Spotify is easy. It will give you the token. That's your token. It will never expire. And as you get to more secure data, you might have to do some other things on other APIs. So there might be an API to log in. This is my case. You've got to go to an API, log in and get a token. So then when you go to like the data API, you've got the token that you just got. Or sorry, you send the token that you've just got, so that the system knows that it's you and you've actually got a very fresh login. I'm not going to look at the chat because there's 18 things in there. So we'll answer questions later on as well if you want to.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, cool. Okay, so if we haven't had enough, I'm going to throw some more TLAs at you, three-letter acronyms. You've probably come across this before, we've read about it somewhere. There's a thing called ETL, Track, Transform, and Load, which means that this is all the data engineering that happens behind Tableau to make it so that you can actually see the data in Tableau. So usually you would have a source system somewhere, let's call that an API. what I'm suggesting, and sorry, for this part, we're not even talking about web data connectors anymore, but we're still talking about APIs. The API can do, we can actually do something else to say, from the API, I can extract the data, transform it, and load it into the database. Usually we do it a different approach, being the ELT approach, so extract, load, and transform. So we're going to extract the data from the API, load it into my database, then transform it, and then look at it in Tableau. So this is ELT, sort of the modern approach to ETL, and the modern approach is usually called, right? This approach is usually called the modern data stack. So the modern data stack is having your source data, which can be anywhere, but we're sort of thinking about more APIs, but it can be something else, and use a variety of those logos below. That's not everything that can be used, but I've just thrown up a few there. To say we can now extract the data and load it into our database, transform it after it's in the database, and use it in Tableau. So I'm suggesting this as a different approach to using a web data connector. This is a very low code approach because my preferred option is this, where we can use Thi Ho. Thi Ho is a very good tool. There's about there's more than 150 connectors to connect to other things. And those other things are generally APIs. So if you want to, again, get your data from Spotify, get your data from Xero or from Google Analytics or from Facebook ads or a whole heap of stuff, rather than actually write a web data connector, and you've got to write a web data connector per API, Thi Ho usually has the connectors pre-built for you. You can go into Thi Ho and probably in about less than 10 minutes, I can probably do it in about 5 minutes if you've got the right credentials, is attach to the right API and then load the data into whatever database you're using. I prefer Snowflake. You can use a lot of different things. Again, Thi Ho can connect to a lot of different databases as well. So Thi Ho does the job we're looking at for the web data connector of pulling the API data and putting it into a database, north into Tableau. In that database, if you wanted to, you could then transform stuff using something like dbt, or there's other things that you'd use as well. And I prefer this because then all your data is always in your database. Because if we look at the earthquake demo before, that's only going to give you the last 10 days of earthquake data. Hard to go back to 3 years because they just don't make that available in the API. Where if you wanted some weather data, and maybe you work for a place where you want to see how does the weather correlate to my sales, you can build up something like this format here, and then you would have the weather data for everything in history, and then you can actually dashboard that with your data as well. So to summarize, there's 3 ways of getting API data into Tableau. There's Web Data Connector version 2. Again, it's deprecated. It's probably got at least a year of life left, but it's an easier thing to code. Web Data Connector version 3 is the new methodology, supported for a lot longer in the future, a bit harder to set up on your machine. Or you could go for the other approach with this modern data stack, and it could complement your current data warehouse as well, and ELT the API data into your database, and then obviously use that with Tableau at the end. That's it for my presentation. Again, this is my contact information if you need me. I'll jump into the Q&A and ask any questions, and we'll throw it back to Chimdi.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Such an awesome presentation. I definitely think I learned a lot, and hopefully everyone else learned too. As usual, please pop in questions for Chris into the chat if you need to. If not, feel free to reach out to him anytime in the future as you get to dig your hands into web data connectors. And I will pass it back to Prasann to bring in our last but not least set of speakers here. And over to you, Prasann.
Thank you, Chimdi. And thank you, Chris, for taking this amazing session. I think we'll need to go over to the details again. check all those links, and then we can more practice on that. Now, coming over to the last session of this analytics talk today itself is all about not design, but the fundamentals behind it. That is Gestalt principles and pre-attentive attributes, so that you can actually define how to design. And for that, we have Thi with us. Thi is a data and digital senior analyst working at NJ right now. She's based in Singapore, and she started her Tableau journey about 5 years ago. And when she found out DataFam, then it was like she just progressed in a much faster way. She has been a Tableau Public featured author and a 2-time Tableau Social Ambassador and Viz for Social Good APAC lead as well. Her Vizes have been featured in Tableau's COVID-19 Viz Gallery and TC20 and TC21 Viz Gallery. That's huge. And then if we check onto the fun fact, Thi loves to travel. She's a city girl at heart, but finds peace and calmness in nature. Now there we vibe Thi. And she also loves a good coffee and has actually created a Viz about coffee in a Tableau Public profile. Please do check out her Tableau Public profile. The Vizes are really awesome. So, and now we are going to let you know about the other speaker. Along with Thi, we have Jason. Jason is a final year business analytics student at Nanyang Technological University, and he's also the service learning committee member of NTU Business Analytics Club. He started using Tableau to develop business dashboards since his internship at Johnson & Johnson as an IT business analyst intern. And since then, he has been using it for school projects to building interactive dashboards. And I think he has been working along with Thi on major projects. Also, since then, he found out Tableau and the whole community. He has been leading Tableau workshop in his school to share his knowledge with his peers. Fun fact about him, he is a big fan of Manchester United Football Club. Nice. He will stay awake overnight during holidays just to watch football games. Nice. We vibed there too, Jason, till the time Ronaldo was there. Okay, so I'll hand over to you, Jason and Thi, and please do a mind with the awesome topic that you have.
Thank you so much, Prasann, and a big thank you to the analytics top team, Chimdi, Prasann, Annabelle, and everyone who makes this happen and who reached out to us to invite. It's an honor to speak at this event. So let me share my screen. Yeah, thank you to Sam too for all the support. I'm really glad that you're here with us. Okay, so just a very quick introduction. I think Prasann has stated all. It's me here, and this is my career journey. I've been through project management, digital strategy, and then I found an interest in analytics. So I kind of bent my career path into digital analytics and Tableau. I was a Tableau consultant before my current job as a data and digital senior analyst at Johnson & Johnson. I'm passionate about bringing out insights and meanings from data through visual analytics. This is my Tableau journey. You've heard from Prasann, but I just want to especially mention Viz for Social Good, which is very close to my heart. And I have my fellow Viz for Social Good members here in the session, Fred and Kevin. So thanks for being here. And I just want to make a call out for, if you haven't heard yet about Vis for Social Good, please go to our website. So we are a global community of volunteers with data visualization skills, and we come in to help other nonprofits to visualize their data and help them to answer their questions and help them achieve different objectives. So you can take a look at projects or the list of past and present projects. So we actually will have, in this evening, we will have a presentation for our current project yeah, I think it may take some time. So Fred, I think we need to look into this. Yeah. And we have a upcoming project going up very soon. So do check our website for that. And just a quick introduction about Jason. He has been an intern with our organization since the beginning of last year. He came in with little knowledge about Tableau, but within a few months, he made tremendous progress. And he has made a lot of great dashboards for our team and our business. So I think with passion and willingness to learn, we can progress at Tableau or at anything in a very short time. And we are very proud of Jason, as well as other interns who have been with us. So with that, I will give it over to Jason to introduce himself.
Hi everyone, so I'm Jason. So currently I'm a final year business student at NTU, and I'm currently specializing in business analytics. And I'm about to graduate soon in this year, May. So yeah, looking forward to know everyone. So I have been always trying to improve my skills in Tableau through workshops like this, as well as some competitions outside of my school. So yeah, feel free to share our knowledge together. Yeah, thank you, Minty.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, so today, okay, so for our talk, we'll be going through with you or introduce to you if you haven't known about that yet. Gestalt principles, which is quite common in UX, and the equivalent pre-attentive attributes in data visualizations. We'll talk about visual encoding, which is an important concept in data visualization. We have a fun quiz, and then we will have a very quick demo to you how we can utilize or leverage on pre-attentive attributes to enhance business chart to make it more user-friendly and more insightful to business. So we hope you will enjoy it. So first of all, Gestalt principles. Gestalt is German word, so please pardon me if I don't pronounce it correctly. Still learning. So Gestalt is a very common principle in UX. In German, Gestalt means form or shape. So Gestalt theory is the theory about visual perception and how our brain pieces together what our eyes actually see, and shed light into how cognition factors in the way viewers read a piece of design. So according to this theory, an organized whole is not the same as the sum of its parts. And interestingly, the human brain is really good at filling in the blanks in an image and create a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. So with what we see here on the screen, let's summarize these principles. And let me go through with you what each of that mean. So the first letter here, G, you can see this is closure. It tells about closure principle. So what it says is that people have the tendency to see the whole picture. And if there's any gap in the figure, our human brain will just understand the bigger context by ignoring the gaps. And this will be filled with information, even if the information is not even there. So for this letter G, you see there's a gap here, but our brain just perceive and just recognize that that is a letter G. Proximity or common region. So this principle says that elements put together and are close to each other are understood as a group and perceived as more related than things that are spaced apart. So here we have a group of small squares and they are grouped together in a way that help us perceive that this is the letter E. So that's what proximity means. Continuation. So our human eyes follow the smoothest path when viewing lines, regardless of how the lines are actually drawn. So here we see that there is actually a plank, a stick going through letter S, but our eyes just like follow the smoothest path and see this as a letter S. Yeah. Okay, so the next principle is similarity. So here we see that there are two letters T and they look the same. What this principle says that we tend to group similar things together and think that things that look similarly will function in the same way. So how that can be applied in our dashboard design is that things that function the same way should be designed in the same way. So for example, we have two navigation buttons that do the same thing. We should make them look the same, design them in the same way. So because that's what the user think. And it applies to the color usage and the overall design of the dashboard. So the next principle is about figure and ground or negative space. So people instinctively perceive objects as either being in the foreground or in the background. And as a human, we can focus our eyes either in the foreground or the background. So over here, if we focus on the background, maybe we see a black letter A here, but if we focus on the foreground, we can see a white arrow. And very interestingly, this concept is applied very widely in the design, in industrial design. And let me see if I can load it here. Yeah, so if you see the design of FedEx logo, for example, we may not pay attention before, but after we know this figure and ground principle, and if we look at this, there is actually a white arrow in this logo. So this makes use of the figure and ground principle. And finally is the law of focal point. So what this principle says is that whatever stands out visually will capture and hold the viewer's attention first. Just like in the image, we see the duck first because it just stands out visually. So with that, let me go into pre-attentive attributes, which is the application of a Gestalt principle in visual analytics. So pre-attentive attributes are information that we can process visually almost immediately before sending this information to the processing part of our brain. Visual analytics leverages on pre-attentive attributes to help us focus our attention and spot pattern. So I actually get this from Tableau website. And as you see here, there are many different attributes, and we can leverage on this to help the user recognize the pattern in the data. For example, the length, the width, orientation, the size, the shape, right? There's a little triangle here which stands out immediately. Enclosure, position, grouping, color hue, and of course, color intensity. So with this understanding, let's go into an example of how we apply visual encoding to help user recognize pattern and understand data more quickly. And with that, I will hand over to Jason.
Yep. Thank you, Minty. So over here, we have our visual encoding. So usually in our business context, tabular format of presenting our data is still rather popular in our business dashboards. So over here, how can we help our business owners to see our data differently when our data is visually encoded by using the pre-attentive attributes such as color, shape, or sizes? So you will likely need to communicate the value of visual analytics and help your colleagues or your business owners to see the data more differently by walking through what's possible when data is visually encoded. So below, we will be showing some steps and some guide on how we can see the sales and profit data differently in a more effective manner. So firstly, you will see, we will start off with the familiar tabular format. And here is a classic example of how someone might view the sales or the profit in a text table. So to find the highest or the lowest values, it usually requires a full table scan of the rows and the columns. So it might be even more tedious and tiring for your eyes when your table has a lot of rows and columns. So for the next step, we can add some color to the negative numbers and formatting them with apparent parentheses and making them stand out, but only if you are looking for the negative number. So from the image over here, you can see that out of all the numbers, we can see that some are coded with the red color, which means that they are the negative number, which usually signifies a poor business outcome. So at this instance, a table scan is still required to compare the numbers between each other. So next, as an intermediate format between a text table and the full visualization, we can apply the color to the sales and the profit measures individually to show the high and the low values. So at this point, we can make use of the color legend to help us in encoding the data with the color legend. So probably it still requires our viewer to reconcile the ranges of color between the two measures, and using a wide intensity of color, it might also be visually tiring for our audience. So finally, as our end product, we can show our full data visualization with our sales and profit numbers encoded by the length of the bar chart, and immediately our viewer can immediately identify the highest or the lowest sales based on the color intensity of the bar chart as well as the length of the bar chart more easily. So within our bar chart, we can also sort the number in a descending order to to show the market segment with the highest sales at the top row. And yeah, so this is the overview of how we can apply our visual encoding into our data on our business dashboards. Yeah, and I'll now pass it on back to Minty.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So with this understanding of visual encoding, let's have a quiz. This is a very classic quiz of data visualization, and I actually borrowed this from Ken Flurridge. Yeah, so thank you, Ken. Okay, so here the quiz is, can you find all the number twos here? And it's a huge table, a lot of numbers going on. It's really hard for us to spot all the number twos, but if we kind of, you know, leverage on the pre-attentive attribute, the visual hues, principles, etc., that we have learned today, then it's really easy to have us spot all the number twos in this huge table. Right, so with that, let us go into the demo. Yeah, and I'm mindful of the time we have left as well. So here we have a sample of a table. So our business stakeholders loves table of data. So here is what we have is the spending and the budget table. So quarterly spending, we have year-to-date budget, annual budget, and the quarter variance. So just you can see the formula in there. So quarter variance is the quarter budget minus the quarter year-to-date spending, and balance to go is just the annual budget minus of quarter year-to-date spending, right? So we have this table of data for different markets, for different teams, and different projects. So, and yeah, just a note that we use dummy data for this table, so no business data is used here. So from this original version, how can we make the chart becomes more effective for the end user? Because we have our focus would be to help business to notice which project has exceeded the budget, right? The quarter budget and the yearly budget. So, so quarter variance and balance to go here are our two most important metrics to focus on. And okay, this is the end goal that we want to achieve in the first demo. So from this table here to this table here, so I will show you quickly on how we can achieve this, and then Jason will show you the second demo on how we can make a variance analysis or tornado chart. Okay. So let's go back to the before version. And with this, let me go back to Tableau Desktop. So this is our original table. So here there are a lot of metrics, and that could be a bit confusing. What I want the user to focus on is just the last two columns, quarter variance and balance to go. So with that, I want to bring these three columns to the left here to display just pure information. Right, so from here, we can see there are a few measure values that are currently on the right-hand side. So I want to leave them with quarter variance and balance to go. And I want to bring the first three. So I just press Control and select the three of them, and I bring them to the rows. So now it looks Doesn't look very good. I want to select all of them by pressing Ctrl as well and click on this to convert them into discrete value. So now we have these values here on the left, just pure information, and then the focus is here for the user. So how do we apply the color coding to these two measures? What we can do is to search for measure. So measure, we have measure names and measure values. Here I would drag measure values to the color card. And as you can see, we can see a card for measure values here, but this is applying to both quarter variance and balance to go. What I want is, I want to have two different color legends for these two measures. So what I can do here, firstly, is to click on this measure values and click on use separate legends. So with that, you see, now we have two different legend cards here. So before we go into customize that, let me just change text to square. And with this, you can see that the square is filled up with colors. So now I can go into each of the color legend for each of the measure to change, to customize them. So here I want to change just 3 steps color. And I will click on advanced. So I want my negative color to start at minus 0.1 value, and my positive color to start at 0.1, and my center is 0. So with that, I can try to click apply. So now, as you see, there are just 2 colors to tell me what are the negative and positive value. And I can change the color, make them look a bit nicer. Or you can use the branding color here as well. You click on apply. Okay, so the first measure is done, and you can do it quickly for the second measure too. So let me do that very quickly. So similarly, reduce this to 3 steps. To advance, change the start point and the end point. Center it to 0, and then just change negative, positive colors. Okay, so very quickly you have this color formatting and color encoding nicely. And what I want to show you a bit further is we want to customize the tooltip as well. So as you can see, the end goal here, the color of the value in the tooltip does change when you over positive or negative value. So this can be done in this way. So I will just focus on quarter variance. So for quarter variance, I have created, okay, let me just search variance. Okay, so we have negative quarter variance and positive quarter variance. They are 2 calculated metric, which can be created simply as, so for negative quarter variance, if quarter variance is less than -0, then quarter variance. And similarly for positive quarter variance, yeah, so this is how we create the 2 calculated metric. And then you can just select them, both of them, by pressing Ctrl to select multiple values and drag them to tooltips. So in here, I will just show you quarter variance. And because you have dragged those into the tooltip, you should be able to find them under insert. And you can insert both of them, negative quarter variance and positive quarter variance. And what we can do is to color them. So for negative quarter variance, color them in red, positive, color them in green. And there we go. So now the color in our tooltip is changed too, and you can do the same for balance to go. So that is the end of the first demo, and now I will pass it on to Jason for the second demo.
Yep. Thank you, Minty. So now I'll be sharing my screen for our final demo. So over here, I'll be continuing on from where Minty has started. So at the start, we will have a tabular format of our data as shown simply like this. So how can we encode our data with visual encoding, namely color and length? So for these instances, we will be using our tornado chart for our variance analysis. So the first step, we will be bringing our green color pill for the quarter variance to our columns, as well as our balance to go. So by default, you will see that Tableau will help us to present our data in the bar chart format. And as shown in our end product, we would like to see a tornado chart with a darker color tone to the end of the bar chart and a lighter color tone to the length of the bar chart. So to create this tornado chart, we will need to make use of our dual axis to create the color variance. So you can hold on to your control and create a duplicate of each measure. So you can see that we have 2 quarter variance measure as well as balance to go measures. So right now we will be using our dual axis to join the quarter variance bar chart together. So dual axis for the quarter variance and dual axis for our balance to go. And do remember that after every dual axis, do remember to synchronize your axis if you want to make sure that the axes are consistent with each other. So we will go on to synchronize our axis. So for the first part, we are looking at our quarter variance. So the first part of the visualization will be our bar chart, and we will choose the bar option at the marks over here under the first quarter variance measure. And for the second one, we will be choosing our Gantt bar chart. And in order to show the color variance between our Gantt bar as well as our bar chart, we will pull in the quarter variance measure into our color encoding. Over here, we will drag and pull our quarter variance into our color marks. And same for our second measure. So same thing, we will be prompted with this color legend at the right-hand side of the workbook. So we can move on to edit our color legend. So same thing as what Minty has shown us. And we can make use of the step color. Start and Okay, so right now we have our color legend prepared, and next, to create the differences in the intensity of the color, we can go to the bar chart and select the color marks, and we can reduce the color intensity to about 25%. And now you will be able to see a bar chart together with the Gantt bar chart. And the Gantt bar chart, the purpose behind Gantt bar chart will help us to focus on the length of the bar chart to analyze the quarter variance, and will help us to identify which project name has the highest quarter variance and which project has the lowest quarter variance. So by making use of a Gantt bar chart as well as bar chart, it will help us to produce a more visually appealing data visualization. So moving on, we will do the same thing for our balance to go. So we will create a bar chart as well as a Gantt bar, and we will pull in the color code for both of them. And we will just do the same thing as what Minty has shown us earlier. And we can reduce the color intensity of our bar chart back to 25%. So after creating our bar chart, we can also further enhance our dashboard by including the labels for each individual bar chart. So Minty has created the measure for us. So we will bring in the positive quarter variance to our label, as well as our negative quarter variance to the label, so that the positive quarter variance will only appear when it's positive, and the negative will only appear when it is a negative number. So we can go to the label and set a color for each of them. And for negative, we will choose red color. Positive, we will choose green color. And the alignment we'll choose. So this is how you can present your label as well in a more dynamic manner. So when the label is in the green color, you know that the number is positive. When it's red color, you know that it is a negative number. So in the sense that this will help you to create a more dynamic bar chart. And we will do the same for our balance to go by bringing in the negative balance to go to the labels and the positive balance to go to the labels. And we will do the same thing to both of them. And we will centralize them. And do remember to color code the positive and the negative. We can choose the respective corresponding color. And so this is how you can create your tornado chart for your variance analysis by making use of the visual encoding we have learned earlier on today. Yeah, and this is the end of my demonstration, and this will be the end product you'll be able to achieve after this demo. And I will pass it on back to Minty to conclude our session.
Thank you, Jason. Could you please show the last slide on your screen as well? As you have it there, yeah. Yeah, so that's the end of our presentation. The credits go to all of these resources that we've referred to when we made this presentation. And a big thank you again to the top organization team and everyone who has been attending this session. If you have any question or any suggestion, feel free to contact us. And that's my Twitter handle, and that's Jason's email. Yeah, happy to hear from you And I'll pass it back to Chimdi and Prasann.
Awesome. Thanks so much, T and Jason. Awesome stuff, getting us, skilled up in enhancing our users' understanding. That's always important. So we do have one question here by Abhishek, but I'd say, Abhishek, if you don't mind reaching out to T, it's very straightforward. It's basically he wants to know the difference between closure and continuation. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to close us off here. So again, thanks everyone for showing up. Thanks for staying with us, even though we went a little bit over time. I'm just going to round this off as usual. If you want to speak, please feel free to apply using this barcode. It'll be on the slides for you. We're always happy to take on any topics that you feel are going to be helpful. One more thing from you. I mean, for me personally, I'm new on this side of the screen. I'm used to being on the other side, and I've gained so much value from this tug. Annabelle, Prasann, and a few others have been longer than I am, but Tableau conference is here, which means that the vizies are here, which means there's an opportunity to vote for this tug as tug of the year. If you've gained any type of value, it will be much appreciated, so that, it's just really motivation to continue to bring you amazing speakers, amazing Tableau contents, and help us all grow together. And so finally, of course, our next meeting is next month on the 27th, so the fourth Thursday of the month, at 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. GMT, 12 to 2 EST, 9 to 11 PST. You can register here at this link. We have moved over onto a new platform now called Bevy. So you're going to find it's relatively similar, but all the same contents. The video links are going to be there. And I recommend you subscribe so that you can always keep up to date with all the events that are happening here. So thanks again. Look out for this video on YouTube. Thanks again to our amazing speakers who have come in today. Thanks to my co-hosts. And we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Let
Thank
me
you.
stop the recording. Stop share. All right. There's the stop recording button. Ooh, stop.
It's done.